and welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. Are you someone who likes their music with a bit of energy and a bit of fun? Then let me point you towards Bakers Eddy. Formed in Wellington, New Zealand when its members were still quite young, the group found itself crafting a pop-punk sound and issuing a few tracks in an EP before heading west and relocating to Melbourne, Australia. Since 2017, Bakers Eddy have been an Australian band in location only, with the group's profile consistently rising ahead of their debut album, Boredom Bicycles, in 2022. And rightly so, it's a solid record and one that definitely shows the level of passion and skill they bring to their craft. Since then though, things have been a bit quiet, with the group largely remaining silent on the recording front until this year. That's not to say they've been taking it easy. With appearances both at home and abroad, there's been plenty of activity, but we didn't get new music until the singles from their latest EP, I'm Doing Better. A solid release that really captures the band's maturity and their growth as songwriters and people. It's a record that's certainly worth your time. To celebrate its release, I was lucky enough to have a chat with Ciarann Babbington from the band about their history and everything that has led up to the new EP's release. We did end up with a pretty tight schedule toward the end, so we had to wrap up things a little quicker than I would have liked. But hey, that's show business, baby. Anyway, have a listen to Bakers Eddy's I'm Doing Better, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Ciarann Babbington, thank you very much for joining this episode of the Trusty Chords podcast.
No worries. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you on board. But I guess for those who don't recognize your name, could you give me a quick few words on who you are and why we're chatting today?
Absolutely. So I play guitar and I sing in the band Bakers Eddy. And yeah, we're from New Zealand and we've been a band since we were like little babies, pretty much. And yeah, we moved over to Melbourne I think it's about 7.5 years ago now. So it was a long time ago. That time goes so fast. It's crazy. But yeah, like we moved from Wellington, New Zealand, in search of, greener pastures in terms of, a music scene for us to slot into. And we found it in Melbourne. It was never supposed to be our kind of like, we were never supposed to put down roots in Melbourne. But it's kind of happened that way in that like we found a community of people that we felt that that resonated with us. And yeah, COVID happened as well, so we were stuck here for about 2.5 years, and those things happened. But like we've really come to love Melbourne, and like we call it home now. Wellington will always be home. But yeah, we're enjoying living in Melbourne at the moment.
I actually find it really fascinating how many New Zealanders do find themselves in Melbourne, especially in the Melbourne music scene. I mean, I play in a band, and our singer's from Dunedin originally.
Yeah, well, Dunedin's also an amazing music place as well. Like
absolutely,
the Flying Nun scene that was so prominent in Dunedin in like the late '90s, early 2000s. Huge influence on New Zealand music, and yeah, a lot of people I know actually from Dunedin have moved over here and have like an amazing wealth of knowledge of music because of the Flying Nun scene.
Well, I mean, only just I think last week we played a gig and we premiered a new song which everyone was saying it really sounds like a typical '90s Flying Nun sound, and we're like, that's what we're aiming for. So
it's such a sound, like it really is. And there's not a lot of other music that exists that sounds like it is its own sound. And I do think that New Zealand in general has a sound. And I think it's really fun when sometimes that comes out in our music, like unexpectedly, but because it's so built into you, I think as a person that comes from New Zealand that plays music, it just always finds its way out. And you're like, it could be something that no one else would notice, but it's just like this one chord and the way that I played that one thing in this one song that is completely different to anything else that I would expect to be like a typical New Zealand sound. It's like, oh yeah, that's Dunedin, or like, oh yeah, that's New Zealand music for sure. So it just comes out.
There's definitely been a few times when we're just like that sounds like a song by The Clean or something like that.
Yeah,
or the Chills.
Yeah. The Mint Chicks, big one.
Of course, and I'm sure we'll probably be touching on them at some point. But before we do that, what I'd love to do at the start of these podcasts is go back in time to where a love of music first formed. So, do you have a recollection of your earliest memory when music first resonated?
I do. I mean, my dad is like an amazing musician, and music has always been like a part of the house. Um, or even like my mum's a massive music fan as well. She doesn't play music, but she's like big into poetry and she's very creative. She's basically just a hippie. So there's all kinds of, crazy music that I grew up listening to as a kid. But the first like proper memory I have is my dad used to play which we'll also mention in my favorite songs, but he plays reggae. Like he's a massive reggae guy, which a large population in New Zealand are, especially within like Māori culture, Pacific Island culture, Polynesian culture. But reggae was always like reggae was the only thing that was really played at my dad's house or like in my dad's cars. And he used to have like jams on a Saturday night where all his like friends from work and stuff would come around and they'd all be in the garage, like just jamming reggae songs. So like my first memory is dad playing like covers of like Bob Marley songs or like Catch a Fire songs at the time, like in the shed drinking beers with like all of his friends. Um, so that's like where my love of reggae music kind of came from. Like I love reggae music. Um, and yeah, Bob Marley straight up would probably be my very first music memory, which isn't bad. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, I have a very strong memory of actually when I was probably about 4 or 5. My grandparents used to own a pub literally just down the street from me, and I distinctly remember walking in there and we just heard Buffalo Soldier on the radio, and but as a kid I didn't understand the context. So I remember telling my grandparents I just heard this song Bubblegum Soldier, and they were just like, "The hell are you talking about?" So yeah, but Bob Marley is quite ingrained within my mind as well. But
Yeah.
obviously the music that you play today isn't exactly reggae. So
Yep.
how does this transformation sort of take place? How do you sort of go from, hearing like reggae in the car to sort of getting into some more, I guess, popular, more sort of, I mean, I can see in the background there's a few sort of like punk flags. We've got the Green Day, the Descendants, the Misfits, which is that's a bold band name for a New Zealander to try and say as well. But there's
Must
exactly. So, but there's definitely a few. Yeah, there's a bit of musical evolution that went into play there. So how did that happen for you?
um I think it was just a journey of self-discovery, really, like trying to find my own way in music. And the first kind of, I mean, like I was listening to what was popular in New Zealand at the time, like when I was in early primary school, like Scribe. I don't know if you remember
Oh
Scribe,
yeah,
but
not
like,
many.
Scribe was massive when
Yeah.
I was growing up, and all the. Do you know what's funny? Like, my brothers and sisters on my dad's side, like they all loved like hip hop. Um, and all my friends at school all loved rock. And I used to have this like battle with them on a daily basis of like what's better, hip hop or rock. And I was always on the hip hop side growing up as a kid. I didn't have like a wealth of knowledge of hip hop music, but I was like, all my brothers and sisters love hip hop, love like Tupac, love Scribe, love like these bands that are in New Zealand called Asian Mystic and like Fast Crew and all this stuff.
Oh yeah, Fast Crew.
And Fast Crew,
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And those are like my jams growing up as a kid, and I used to like despise the rock kids. But then we're talking like early primary school, and then mum moved us down to Wellington, from north of Auckland, where I spent my childhood. Moved us down to Wellington, and her housemate, the person that we were living with at the time, handed me two CDs. One of them was, I think it was a 48 May record.
Okay.
Um, or it was, I can't remember exactly what it was. But the other one was American Idiot. And mum and dad had just put money towards this like Ashton drum kit that, because I was like, I'm gonna be a drummer. That's what I'm gonna do. They bought me this Ashton drum kit, and I had that in the house that we were staying at, and my mum's housemate handed those two CDs to me. I was like, cool. I put American Idiot in like the little stereo, the little portable stereo, plugged headphones into it, put it on, listened to it with the intention of like learning how to play drums to it, and then going to the other CD. But I never touched that other CD. Like I just listened to Green Day like constantly, like obsession. I had like, yeah, just that I knew that song, that whole album, American Idiot, off by heart, like on the drums within about a month, maybe. Then I learned how to play guitar over it. There was just like this crazy obsession with Green Day. So, like, my that obviously paved the way to me falling in love with rock music and emo music and pop punk stuff. And that was kind of the moment where I was like, yeah, I have found the thing that I is personal to me and I love. And it spoke to me. Like, yeah, it was all of it is thanks to American Idiot. Like everything that I do now is thanks to American Idiot.
I mean, music pretty much peaked in 2004, and it's all been downhill from there. Although there was a bit of a bright spot in the world of music when Bakers Eddy formed. So, how exactly, how do things begin for Bakers Eddy? And I guess what's the sound that you guys sort of have in mind, if there is a sound, or if you're just sort of getting together and playing music?
It was Green Day.
Okay, well, next question.
Well, like so we I'd known Jamie, our drummer, like in primary school, in Wellington. And we kind of like connected through skateboarding and stuff. So we were already hanging out all the time. And when we went to high school, I was kind of playing in this, not a school band, but we had this thing in New Zealand, not based off the movie, but it was called the School of Rock. And it's just a place where you go after school and you're kind of put into a band. And we're talking like 11, 10, 10, 11, 12 years old. Put into a band, you play music, you learn to make songs, you learn how to play shows. And I was like, I'm sick of this band. I've outgrown this band. But to be fair, they were all just bullies. So I was just like, I don't want to be a part of this band anymore. So I came up with this idea of like starting a band, which was going to be me playing drums and Jamie beatboxing because he was a really good beatboxer, but he hadn't touched a drum kit before. But he just naturally had a lot of rhythm. So like we were like, let's start this thing. And the goal is to play the end of year assembly in year nine. I'll drum, you beatbox. And then I put my Ashton drum kit in his house because I had no space for it in my house. So I put that there. And then we never even like practiced this supposed drum beatbox duo set. He was just like, oh, can you just teach me how to play drums? So like I really badly taught him how to play a few things. And I was learning how to play power chords at the time. So we were just like, oh, we'll just play some like Green Day songs. But then that turned into making our own Green Day songs. And then I knew Ian and Alex, who are the twins in the band, because they used to come to a few of the School of Rock shows. They were like massive, massive like music fans and like total fucking emos when we were kids. And they used to come a lot, and I knew that they existed, but I always thought they were too standoffish and like too cool, so I was a bit afraid to like go and speak to them.
Classic
Then
emos, really.
yeah, yeah, of course. And then one day, like we were at high school, and they ended up at the same high school as us. We just got talking, and Ian was like, "Oh, I can play guitar." I was like, "Oh, we don't need a guitar, sorry." He's like, "Oh, I'll play bass." So we're like, "Yeah, let's try it." And then we had a one rehearsal. Ian was a massive Green Day fan as well, so we like connected on that. And yeah, then we just started like playing these three chorded punk songs that were just horrendous, like rip-offs of like Insomniac, Nimrod era Green Day. Just awful stuff. Like it was so bad. But we were having the best time. Like we were like, this is what we want to do. We never intended on becoming a band. It was just like something fun to do outside of like loitering and skateboarding and being a menace. So
Mm. But I mean, but obviously that does sort of like turn into a band at some point. You guys start writing music, releasing music, recording, and then you end up moving to Melbourne and everything like that. There's just so much. It's just like, was there a specific moment where you started realizing actually we've got something special going on here?
um yeah, I think like we practiced so much. Like it was all we wanted to do. Like on a Friday, Saturday night after school, we would just end up at Jamie's place. And we would just play music for hours and hours and hours. And we weren't like just once we realized what we were doing, that wasn't just like hanging out and playing a few songs and going out like doing stuff. We were like getting into a room and we would do like 6 straight hours of just nonstop songs on repeat, on repeat. And then would walk out the door, go like jump into the creek that Jamie had and be like, well, what do you want to do now? And be like, let's just do the music thing again. So once we started like realizing that this is all we were doing, we stopped like going out skateboarding. We kind of like our social life started to diminish. We were just so like invested in this thing that we had together. And that would have been like late high school, probably actually when we around the time that we left high school, actually, it was just like all we wanted to do was play music. And at that point, we are like, yeah, let's just do this. Let's like try and do something with this, become like a proper working band, and see what that looks like.
So it was in 2022 that we got the debut album. So there'd obviously been EPs and everything before that, a lot of singles. And the album did pretty well for you guys. I should say, for those listening who haven't heard of it, it's a Love Boredom Bicycles. So it's a great, great album. But how did it feel for you guys? Was it a bit of a victorious moment to sort of be like, hey, this band that was never really begun with the intention of being a band, we're now a band releasing an album? But that must have been pretty cool.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. Seeing it physically on vinyl was a huge moment for us. Like I remember we did that at this house. Like we opened it up in the lounge and it was just like almost brought to tears by the fact that we had done it. And like we always wanted to make an album. Like when we first started like doing music, we always wanted to do the album, but we just ended up on the cycle of kind of like we're gonna do an EP and we're gonna do EP and when are we gonna do the album and stuff. And then we intended on dropping another EP around the time of like around 2020, like halfway through 2020. And then COVID happened, and we're like, well, let's not do that. But it gave us some time to write a lot more songs and then totally reshape the things that we were doing at the time. So, like, the EP that we were originally going to release just didn't exist anymore. Like, we were just writing new music. So, like, it was very triumphant coming out of COVID with an album that was never meant to exist because we weren't planning on doing an album at that time with new songs. Like, it was really special. And like, I sent the record to my dad, I sent the record to my mom. Like, it's everyone in this house has it on the wall because we're just like, it's the best. It's the best feeling.
The band that I play in, we released an album last year, and I'm hardly on the album. Like I have backing vocals on one song because I joined the band late.
Oh, okay, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's a sort of thing where it's like it's suddenly this weird tangible thing where you just sort of like all this work and like this effort that you put into it, something that you care about. It suddenly becomes tangible in like in
Yeah.
a really sort of strange way. And yeah, there's
Yeah,
a huge sense of pride that you have for sure.
definitely. And like, I feel like it's the physical copy. That's the
Mm,
thing that really like, brings it home, I think, for you personally.
mm.
It's just like it's one thing to see like your album on Spotify, like you can see it there, the songs are there, but like when you can hold it, that's just gold. Like it's the best feeling.
Because I mean, especially coming from that sort of that musical history of like having like a Green Day CD, for example, and it's almost like in a weird way having something physical is sort of indication that you've made it. I mean, at least as a kid, you're just sort of like, oh, I could never be like that. I could never have a physical product that people can have in their houses, and suddenly it's like, oh, holy hell.
I do wish physical singles were more of a thing though, because I remember like growing up and like $10 for a single, and you'd walk in and there'd just be the shelf of
Mhm.
singles that artists, the top 40 had released, and you could grab it and pick it up and take it. But that died as soon as, streaming started. So I was like, oh, I don't have my singles. That's what I want.
Totally. Oh, I mean, so actually 2 years ago, like we mentioned the Misfits before. 2 years ago, I actually decided to record a cover EP of Misfits like songs, just like acoustic thing. And I was like, oh yeah, chuck it up on Bandcamp. I've sold about 3 copies. No one wants CDs anymore.
Yeah.
Like CDs are just sort of they're sadly gone. But it is
Yeah.
it is what it is. But look, enough about CDs and Misfits covers.
That's cool though. That's really cool.
So after the release of the album, I mean, we didn't really hear too much of Baker's Eddy until this year. So what have the past few years been like for you?
The last few years have been the a lot of time to kind of like rethink what we were doing, and like it was never intended as well like to be this big long break. And to be fair, like a lot of people have come up to me in the last since coming back, really, going like, did you have a nice holiday? Like, did you have a nice break? Did the band go on hiatus? It's like, nah, actually, we were all working really hard, and I was able to like begin my kind of journey in doing production and doing more kind of music stuff outside of Bakers Eddy, but at the same time, just like constantly writing songs. Um, and I think like we were a little bit lost after like the touring period of 23, I think, after we dropped the album. Um, just like personally, like within ourselves. So I think we kind of forgotten to an extent like why we started the band. And that kind of showed itself in little bits of, like, I guess like personal separations, maybe that's probably a way to put it. Like we were just kind of a little bit lost. So we took some time. I was able to kind of like just bed into writing on my own for Bakers, which was a very kind of like it was a new experience. I just figured out how to use Logic. Um, so was just able to throw all these new things like synthesizers and just like not being held back by a four track, like two guitars, bass, drums, and started to discover the sound that was being generated out of these sessions were stuff that I don't think we would have ever thought we'd put out 2 years ago. So like just went all in on that stuff. And then kind of came out of that process with an album. Oh, sorry, with an EP. We had an album's worth of songs, but we had like a solid EP. And then because we kind of just like dropped social media for a bit and we weren't outwardly being a band, we realized like, okay, this is our moment that we can kind of all get together again and, um, talk about important things and like reconnect with each other on a deeper level, which is something that we weren't really able to do that much of when we were constantly on the go. So I think like although not playing shows and not putting out music and not being a band, so to speak, in the last 2 years, that sucked. But at the same time, like I'm so thankful for the fact that we gave ourselves some space to bond with each other and like find our roots again and have important discussions about mental health and like important discussions about our relationship and growing up and just hang out with each other. So coming back, I feel like there's a new kind of feeling within the band. Like I do feel like a bit of that pep is back in our step, so to speak.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad that the last 2 years played out the way they did. Because I just feel like we can really be honest with our music and be honest with the way that we talk about things and be honest with each other, and create a space where we can be vulnerable with each other.
Because we have heard some new music from you guys recently, thanks to tracks like Manners Street, UFO, and Dust on My Brain, which are all on the upcoming EP, I'm Doing Better. But I say upcoming, but this episode comes out on release day, so congrats on the new EP today. You must be feeling great.
Hey!
What an amazing piece of time travel we're doing here. But listening to this music, like it all definitely does feel very, like these last few years have been very fruitful for you all. I mean, even tracks like Dust in My Brain, there is this discussion of like mental health, which is, I mean, even like from my own point of view, I find it very important to have those sort of discussions and to see it put out there in the world of music. So, I guess, what does this EP say about who Bakers Eddy are in 2025?
I think it's like I just said, like it's an EP that I feel we put a lot more vulnerability into than we ever have, in a way that like we weren't hiding so much behind metaphors. Like we've always been a band that has spoken about like mental health struggles or depression or just like normal stuff that I feel like majority of people go through. But I think it's always been in this kind of like metaphorical way where maybe even the music sounds ridiculously happy, but like the lyrical content when the songs are really sad. And that I love that. And we still do that in some of the songs like Hopeless Dreams and stuff. But a song like Dust in My Brain was really, I think, pivotal for us, or for me at least, in telling a very vulnerable story and about like my mental health struggles, realizing that in doing so at the worst time for me in terms of like I was struggling with mental health and I don't like writing music when I struggle. I think it's really tough. And I did it that day and I wrote this song and I realized that that was immensely therapeutic for me in sitting down and writing the song. So I also put that into the song that I'm like, I'm doing better now, and that's all that matters. Like that's something, and that's something that I can pivot off of and use as like a catalyst to change for change, in the way I feel. So like, yeah, I think that level of vulnerability in the music is something that I am really glad that we've discovered we can do. and that feels comfortable with us. But yeah, I it's still Baker's Eddy to a degree of like it's fun. It's always going to be fun. It's always going to be high energy. It's always going to sound a little bit emo. It's always going to sound a little bit Green Day. But like, yeah, it's packaged a little bit differently.
It's fair. And I mean, you mentioned that vulnerability. Like, do you are you someone who finds it difficult to be vulnerable through music? Because I know a lot of artists can find it quite daunting to sort of be like, hey, this is me,
Hmm.
no holds barred sort of thing. Do you have that issue at all, or has it become something that's become easier?
It's become something that's gotten easier over time, I think. But I think that comes from not being so open as a kid to allowing ourselves to talk about deep things. And I realized that like in the last, 3, 4 years is that something that we as a band, of, four boys growing up together, almost like even though we were listening to emo music and Green Day and stuff that, speaks very honestly and candidly about important things and struggles, we weren't really doing that so much as kids. And I feel like that's fairly normal. Not necessarily a good thing, but like that's fairly normal. And it took time of really like being comfortable in like vulnerability to be able to get to this place where we can write music. And it is write music that is vulnerable and honest. So over time, like I said, like having these discussions with the boys, and creating these like spaces where we can just go and we can just talk and we can just like hash it out in big ways, has been, yeah, really, really important in keeping that door open to be able to be vulnerable in music. And I feel a lot more comfortable doing it now. And also storytelling is super important for me at the moment. So you can't really tell a good story unless it's got a level of honesty, and I feel a lot more comfortable with honesty. So yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that also sort of leads into another question I was sort of thinking of is like you're talking about all this sort of growth that the band and even yourself have sort of experienced. So when you sort of look at the band of today compared to the one that first formed all those years ago, how do you feel? Like, do you view it as the same band, or is there like a lot of personal growth that it might as well just be totally disparate groups these days?
It's a good question because I think to some degree like it has felt like we're completely different, but in the same way I'm like we're not, and it's important for me. I think I'm very nostalgic, but like it's important for me to stay rooted in who we are. And I think the others feel the same way. As like we it gets sometimes that gets lost of like our childhood and our growth and our beginnings when you're so in the machine and you're working constantly and you're trying to do this and trying to do that and on tour and stuff. You get very wrapped up in the now and who you are now and all that stuff, which is great. Like musically, completely different band. Not similar whatsoever. As people, very different. We've grown, we've experienced growth, and we're better people now, obviously. And it's been a long time. But at the same time, we all constantly now remind each other of like, do you remember where we started? Like, do you remember doing this? Do you remember we had our first rehearsal in Jamie's lounge and we put all our amps, our two amps that we had like facing up towards us so we could pretend they were like stage monitors. Like all this stuff. I'm like, we are the same people. And we need to remember our roots. I think it's important to have a mix of the both.
I mean, it's always important to stay humble. Like,
Yeah.
no matter who you are, it's always nice to have that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also just fun to be like, yeah, this is bigger than this band that we're in is bigger than the music that we put out and the shows that we do. This is like a thing that allowed us to be four high school friends, Jamie and me, primary school friends, like friends for a long, long time, and remain in such close quarters with one another. Like, I don't know any other friends from high school that are still best friends with their high school friends. I'm not friends with any other friends that I met in high school. Like, but I have this that I have with the boys. And that's all thanks to this shared project that we got wrapped up into and decided to give everything to. So that's the big thing for us.
Really nice and profound as well. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, so look, I feel like we should get down to the portion of the podcast in which its
Yes.
namesake is derived. So, as a bit of explainer, Trusty Chords sees me follow the 1, 3, and 5 structure of a standard chord, and I ask about one artist that has been impactful, 3 albums that have been influential, and 5 songs you can always turn to. Now, one thing I absolutely love about Caitlin Crowley, who is the PR, who has organized our chat today, she's a wonderful person in the music industry. She always gets folks to actually give me their picks ahead of time. So, as such, I've been able to have a look at your picks. And so, the first question I do have is, one artist that has inspired you the most personally or creatively. Now, this one come from your childhood. So, Dave Dobbin, tell me, no, it's Green Day. So,
Da, 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 boom, da. Hey,
of course.
honestly though, like no jokes. If you're born in New Zealand, Dave Dobbin has had an influence on your life in some way.
I mean,
You just
honestly, even here, his influence has like managed. I mean, obviously, things like DD Smash didn't quite come over here, but yeah. I mean, I like actually years ago, I was in a relationship with a girl from Hamilton actually, and just like talking to her family and everything, all of the music they were telling me, it's sort of like, here's one you need to listen to. It's like Dave Dobbin, The Feelers, and all this sort of thing. And I'm like, well, I now I'm going to get well versed in the Dave Dobbin discography, and it holds up. But we aren't here to talk about Slice of Heaven or anything. We're here to talk about Green Day. So we've touched on Green Day a bit, but what is it about Green Day that really sort of resonates with you?
I have no idea. Like, I mean, I do. I think it's the impact that American Idiot had on me was insane. Like, I am an obsessive person. I go through these like obsessions in my life all the time, where it's like all I want to do is this one thing, all I want to learn about is this one thing, and then I move on very quickly. Um, Green Day like was something else. Like I was able to connect with the music because I was listening to it while I was learning it, because that's just what I wanted to do. And Green Day is not the hardest music in the world to play. Like it's not they're not trying to do anything crazy musically. So I could put the CD on and I could figure out kind of like the very basics of how to play it. So I was really analyzing, the songs in that record when I first heard it, which made it easier for me to connect in like a crazy profound way with the music. Um, and it was Bullet in a Bible, the live movie that I had bought at the same time. So I listened to the Green Day record and loved it. And then I saw Bullet in a Bible and I saw them live, and that was like game changing. And I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that live CD/DVD is like the reason why I play music, because I like Bakers Eddy are a live band. Like the live stuff is the priority in like what we do. And I think we're really good at it. Like I think that Green Day has a lot to do with that because of their performance and like they're trying their whole thing with putting on a show. And as a kid, that was so like stimulating to me, like seeing Billy Joe and all the pyro and all the like crowd interaction stuff. So I feel like actually, yeah, Bullet in a Bible is the reason why I fell so much in love with Green Day, and that record there.
Of course. I mean, I've got a copy of Bullet in a Bible behind me. I mean, I've got a few Green Day albums actually behind me, as you can see with this some CD shelf.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
It's a
it's
great
a brilliant.
collection.
But my next question for you: the 3 albums that you can always turn to. Now, I like this list because there's it's a nice diverse little mix. So let's start with the 2 Kiwi ones. We've got the Mint Chicks on here.
Oh yeah, my favorite band other than Green Day. I think that like so Green Day was my into rock music, and emo music. Minchicks were my kind of the next love for me, the next obsession, because I saw them. Like I said to you earlier, like I was part of this school of rock thing, and they had a rock camp once a year, which was like 3 days and some like I don't know, some school camp or something. And the Minchicks were going to play that. We're meant to play that camp. And Cody, the singer, had this like had a big breakdown before they went on. I think allegedly it was because he just was like, we're above playing rock camps. which is hilarious. But Ruben Nielsen, who's now UMO, he subbed in and singing for the band, and I saw them play at this rock camp in front of like 30, 40 kids. At that time, they were like doing quite well. They had a song in the top 40 in New Zealand. They were Craziest Dumb No. But they were just outrageous live. Like they were crazy. They were the way they moved on stage was so captivating. Um, when I eventually saw the Minchicks with Cody, which was like 6 months later, he was like climbing the lighting rig and doing all this crazy stuff. And again, like I'm a live music guy, so like seeing them live as a kid was the thing that I was able to connect with and go listen to the album. And then I just smashed it like on repeat. I was ripping copies to give to friends as well. Like and I learned how to play the drums over the songs as well. So yeah, I just have a very, very distinct like nostalgic feeling towards that album. To be fair, all the albums on the list are very nostalgic to me.
I mean, the Minchicks are just they were insane. I sadly never got to see them live. I think I've seen UMO though,
Yeah,
but
I haven't though.
I
I'm really excited.
yeah, I think I saw him about a decade ago. I'm really like going to the recesses of the brain
Yeah.
here. But another Kiwi artist we've got here, and it's actually I actually had John Toogood of She Hat on this podcast previously. Yeah. So you're in fine company. And the album we're talking about is General Electric, which such a huge record. Some amazing songs on that one.
Oh, it's amazing. It's incredible. Again, like nostalgia connection. I never liked Jihad as a kid, like growing up, but then in high school, when I was doing the big, like, okay, I've got to get into this band, I've got to get into this band. Jihad were one of these bands. And all four of us were just obsessed with this record. Like anytime we were together, we were listening to that, amongst others, but like I said, like very nostalgic feeling towards it. And there's like a few songs specifically, as we'll talk about in a second, that like yeah, I will always turn to now if I'm feeling a certain way, if I need to pick me up, if I need to feel sad, there's like songs on that record that I can go to. But yeah, that one specifically among above all the other records on the list, that one is one that all four of us have the same exact same love for and like connection to.
Now, third one is another brilliant record. One of my favorite albums. Actually, this band's entire, like their first three record run, it's untouchable in my mind. But Infinity on High by Fall Out Boy.
I mean, you said it all. Like it's Green Day paved the way for me to be able to discover Fall Out Boy, and it happened pretty soon after as well. Like, I wasn't a big fan of Fall Out Boy before I got into Green Day. Like I'd seen Pete Wentz on my TV on like MTV and stuff before, but I was like, oh, I'm not that into it. And then got into Green Day. I was like, I'll give it another go. And yeah, just instantly fell in love with the guitars, and it was um a bit raunchy as well. Like at that age where you're kind of like you discovering yourself a little bit and all these things, like it's very sexy, like in a very emo way. Like it's a hot record. So like yeah,
Plus,
that was
Pete Wentz was a heartthrob back in the day.
oh my
I mean,
God.
he's still a good-looking man. Let's be real, but
But very different though.
very different these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's become seasoned. But
Exactly.
yeah, no, absolutely amazing era for that sort of like pop punk emo thing. I mean, I've occasionally told people. I remember the first time I heard of Fall Out Boy was back in the day. Like Apple or no iTunes used to send out like, oh, these are the top hits, and this is like early 2005 when From Under the Cork Tree came out, and it said, oh, our top single is Sugar We're Going Down. And at the time, I just thought I was remembering that song, what Sugar Sugar by Baby Bash, and I was like, oh, a song mentions sugar has to be a hip hop band, and I was
Yeah.
like. I'm not going to listen to this band. I'm not into hip hop. It's punk or nothing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
then I
agree.
discovered Dance Dance, and I was like, wow, this is like a gateway drug. Never looked back.
Best bass line in the history of music.
So good. But I guess that's a nice little segue because we're going to now ask about the five songs you can always turn to. And we can't talk about bass without talking about reggae. And we mentioned Bob Marley earlier, and we have the song Is This Love?
Yeah, like I talked about it earlier, but that connection to reggae, Bob, comes from my dad and like my multicultural as well. And like I said, the earliest memories of music for me was in my dad's like four-wheel drive, driving down to this place called Tukumadu Bay, which is where my tribe Ngati Porou is from, like in the on the east coast of the North Island. Me and my sister and my dad, and he just had Bob on repeat. And that song specifically, I just remember being like, yeah, this is it.
I mean, it's a timeless song, isn't it? It's just
And like
it's so good. It's so feel good as well.
I turn to it on a regular basis because it's just so uplifting.
Mm,
And sometimes I just need that. And also like I need that connection to home and to my dad or to like my moldy side as well. And I find it through that song.
of course. And next song is an artist we have touched on already. It's She
Mm.
and Pacifier, which is very fitting because if you say it the other way around, I mean, you've got both band names going on there.
True.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful song. It's a very strong song of this.
I this is one that the four of us like in the band on a regular, like if we're driving for on tour, especially coming back, like driving to our maybe our accommodation after a show, and we're feeling all these things, and we had a great show, and we're like riding this high. We'll put on that song, and like it'll bring us to tears every time.
Mm.
Yeah,
I mean, I know for each of these, I'm just saying, oh, it's brilliant, but it truly is brilliant. Like,
yeah,
they're so good.
yeah. I
Um,
love that song. I love that song specifically, like that record. But that song is like my favorite She Had song ever.
oh, it's so good. Now, and next song is by Mitski. Now, Mitski is it feels like a little bit of a like out of left field choice here, but I mean, it's quite fitting with how some of these songs are quite powerful sorry, these choices are powerful, impactful, and even emotional. So we've got "Carry Me Out" by Mitski.
That's my crier. Like that is once I heard that for the first time, I was on a tram into the city, um, and it brought me to tears. Like I was going through some stuff at the time as well. So like I have when I listen to that song, I have a connection to a thing that was happening, and I'm able it brings out those emotions straight away. And I think that crying is one of the best feelings in the world. Like it's horrible, it's awful, it's sad, like it feels those things, but you feel something. And if I am ever like teetering on the edge of tears, or I'm just having a bad time, or I just need to listen to something that is gonna like evoke that emotion, like that song 100% is my first go-to because
I
it's
mean,
just that last chorus is just
yeah.
insane. Like it's so deep and like you can't help it.
Mitski is a great artist for that. I mean, songs like, Your Best American Girl, I Bet on Losing
Yeah.
Dogs. I mean, there's not a dry eye in the house.
No,
Uh,
exactly. And I love that. I love that feeling. And then the next song is a complete flip on that because that's my G up song.
well, I feel like there probably will be a few, a few tears shed when people finally see this band when they come to Australia in October. It's Oasis with Supersonic.
Yeah, I again, I'm a phase dude. I go through phases. I have obsessions and stumbled across Oasis on YouTube. Another band I was like, I'm not interested as a kid. Like I just wasn't a fan. The singer looked like a dickhead. And I stumbled across them on YouTube and this was the song. I was like, oh, no, I'm feeling something. And yeah, I just could not stop listening to the song. I fell in love with the band. I fell in love with Liam, even though he's a dick. Oh, I love him so much. Like, yeah, this is the song I put on if I need to get pumped up for anything. Like, absolutely anything. This is my pre-gig song.
There's also so much confidence in a musician who can actually deliver a line like, I know a girl called Elsa. She's into Alka-Seltzer with a
Oh,
straight face.
oh,
It's a ridiculous line, but it works so well.
I know, and he
And
looks so cool doing it too.
he just looks so bored as he's putting it all through. He's like, this isn't even my whole day. I've got so much
Oh,
more to do.
that's crazy.
But our last song it's a another brilliant song. Cult of Personality by Living Colour. This is a classic rocker you can't really go past.
I'm a wrestling fan in a huge way. A massive WWE nerd. And I find like I love entrance music. I love entrance themes. This is CM Punk's theme song. And again, if we're talking about songs that I always turn to, like if I need an escape from all things music, all things life, wrestling is always that for me. Like I'm able to turn to that to just get a break from everything else. And if I don't have wrestling to watch at the time, I put on this song and I'm not thinking about anything like music related. I'm not thinking about life. I'm just like enjoying myself and yeah, I always find that like Cold Personality is an amazing song, but because of that wrestling connection, it's an escape for me.
Yeah.
And also it's a great song to go work out to as well.
I mean,
Because it's just
it's a stellar song and one that like its influence as well. It resonates still.
oh, yeah. And I think like if you see CM Punk entering an arena to Cold Personality, you'll understand like how big that is and how big that feels, big that looks, because it's just amongst all these amazing wrestling themes. Like I could have done 5 wrestling themes that I turn to, but like that is the one. And it's cool that they have kept the original like version of the song as well.
Mm.
Whereas a lot of these other songs are all songs that are made for the wrestler, but CM Punk's theme is literally just cold personality.
I mean, you can't go past the original. And I guess with that, I should say, Ciarann Babbington, thank you so very much for your time today and for being
No
part of the
worries.
Trusty Chords podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I have a tendency to waffle, so I know exactly why we went over. But thank you so much for having me. That was a lot of fun. I was looking forward to this as well.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you listened to this episode and enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate it if you were able to take a few moments to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, no obligation, but I'm forever grateful if you do. And of course, I'm over on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. I've also got a blog on my website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's TYLERJENKE/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. That's where you can find a list of all the songs chosen by my guests each week, along with a playlist of all the songs chosen thus far. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running, if you feel so inclined. I also need to thank Ciarann Babbington for spending his time with me this week for the podcast, and I also need to thank Caitlin from Crowd Favourite for helping to organise the chat as well. She's a champion as always. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.